Now, when Prince Harry got his kit off in a Las Vegas hotel room, perhaps he had reasonable expectation that what went on in a private room in Vegas stayed in Vegas. But he reckoned without a camera phone and an American gossip website. It's not the first time a royal has been snapped naked, like father, like son. A picture of Prince Charles unclothed appeared in a German tabloid in 1994. But the Prince of Wales was not in a clinch with a similarly naked woman. Not a single British newspaper has published the pictures of Harry, though The Sun has chosen to mock up an image on their front page, an image that actually looks absolutely nothing like Harry, so they were taking no risks with a lookalike. So is it because editors have suddenly come on over bashfully about privacy, or because they fear that Lord Justice Leveson is breathing down their necks? Here's Stephen Smith.
Keeping a low profile in cerise Bermudas and a straw Panama, the third in line to the throne has been enjoying some downtime in Las Vegas after his duties at the Olympic Games. While he was there, Prince Harry challenged swimming gold medalist Ryan Lochte to a race in a nightclub pool. Not sure that was the legacy everyone was talking about. The Prince invited a whole bunch of people back to his suite for a few rubbers of strip pool. Overnight, celebrity websites in the States ran fuzzy snaps of a naked Prince Harry in clinches with women, also wearing very little. Christmas for the tabloids, or so you'd think.
It's a fantastic story. Handsomest, most popular prince this country's probably ever had, has no clothes on, in a bear hug with the lady who appears to be wearing no clothes in a hotel room. Literally, any journalist worth his salt, whether at one end of the market or the other, would have said, thank you, God. And it doesn't affect Prince Harry at all, because in a way, people would say, well, he's a 28-year-old army officer, he's single, and he's cavorting with ladies who wish to be cavorted with. So where are the issues? There are no issues, except one, Leveson.
Ah yes, Leveson. With his lordship's judgment on press excesses coming soon, British newspaper websites have so far declined to run the pictures. Quite right too, say some.
We have to remember that although this is Prince Harry and two girls, this is a 27-year-old single male who hasn't done anything wrong and who ought to be allowed to have something of a private life. I think the palace has played this exactly right by saying they're not going to make any comment whatsoever about it. Now, over and above that, there isn't any scandal that he's done something that's wrong. There's no criminal aspect of it. There's no leadership aspect of it. You know, so he's entitled to have a private life.
So it seems that while the old media will of course be invited along to royal photo ops, such as Prince Harry's workout with Usain Bolt, they'll be at a disadvantage on less obliging stories, at least compared to websites which lie outside Lord Leveson's remit. One well-known gossip site, Written Here, has posted the Harry pictures.
At the end of the Leveson inquiry, in the summation that News International's barrister gave to the inquiry, he actually said, it's all right for the Guido Fawkes blog, they're going to have a competitive advantage if you clamp down on us, and it won't be a level playing field. So the newspapers are very much aware that this situation cannot persist. And as things get more and more difficult for the old dead tree press, it's to my advantage that the Leveson inquiry does clamp down on them.
Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez vous lever pour son Altesse Royale le Prince Henri de Galles.
It had all been going so well for Henri de Galles, I mean Prince Harry. So as we count down to tomorrow morning's papers, what do you do if you're an editor? Risk the wrath of your owner, of the lawyers?
So I'm the editor of The Sun, right? I've got loads of other issues flying around me. I don't want to embarrass Rupert Murdoch. I don't want to cost myself my job just in case I get it wrong. Actually, I think the bold move should be just to run the damn things, right? I do understand that Linklaters, Freshfield, Herbert Smith will be all over you like a cheap suit. But actually, there is a genuine reason for doing it. It's not as though it's some hole-in-the-wall camera. This He's obviously clearly surrounded by a group of other young people, and they've said, oh, well, that's rather good, we'll have a picture of that.
So this strip pool party is bad for who exactly? Harry, the palace, the press? It's beginning to look like a queue.
Steve Smith. Well, joining me now, we have the evergreen PR guru, Max Clifford, victim of phone hacking, Vanessa Feltz, and the former executive editor of the News of the World, Neil Wallace, who's currently on police bail as part of the phone hacking investigation and is consequently unable to answer any questions which relate to that investigation. However, we'll begin with Neil Wallace. If you were at the height of your powers and one of the tabloid papers, would you have printed these photographs?
Pre-Leveson, yes. Now, no.
But what, is just because you're scared of Leveson? I mean, it is a good photograph, or it's not a good photograph?
The situation is fun. It's a good classic newspaper situation. Pardon me. The problem is in this post-Leveson era, where newspapers are simply terrified of their own shadow, they daren't do things that most of the country, if they saw it in the paper, would think, oh, that's a bit of a laugh, there would be no harm done, and they would not think any worse of either the paper or of Prince Harry.
If you thought it was a laugh, but what is the public interest defence in publishing these pictures?
Well, it's pretty straightforward to me, frankly.
What, third in line to the throne?
He's the third in line to the throne. He's been on the world stage for weeks and weeks and weeks. He is supposedly surrounded by police security officers. The truth is those girls are a group of people who he's met at that hotel, and that's fine, frankly, if you're my 27-year-old son, but this is the third in line to the throne.
Oh, for goodness sake. If he were in some kind of state or public capacity, if he was suddenly stripping off at the Olympic Games in full view of Danny Boyle and the rest of the billion viewers, that would be shocking and that would be a matter of public interest. But what he does in a private hotel room is what we expect him to be doing. He's a young fellow, he's not married, he's not on state business, he's not representing the Queen, and he's having a good laugh, and he damn well deserves it. He's been a fantastic Olympics ambassador, and any editor who says this is private, this is Prince Harry doing what people do in private, which is get naked if they're lucky and cop off with somebody of the opposite sex or the sex that tickles their fancy, and says it's a private matter, it's of no interest to anyone, man or beast, is quite right.
If one of the young women in that room came to you with that photograph, would you take it to paper?
Well, there's no point because they wouldn't publish it.
Ah, but in a previous life, would you have taken that to paper, when pre-Leveson?
No, I wouldn't have done, because I've got a lot of time for Prince Harry and I like him. I don't mean to say a lot of others wouldn't, but personally I wouldn't have done. And I think that, you know, from a PR perspective, there's no way this is going to affect his popularity in terms of what he's done with the armed forces, someone that does an awful lot in terms of the kids, the charities. I've seen him, hold on a second, he's done a lot, him and William, to make the monarchy as popular as they are today, and I think the public think the world of them, and rightly so.
But the issue here, surely, though, Kirsty, is about why the editors make the decision to do that. You see, I think this is a perfectly reasonable point of view, and if an editor sits there and says, on journalistic decisions I will decide to or not decide to, then that's fine. That's not the reason it is not in the Sun tonight.
No, we'll talk about Leveson more, but hang on, I just want to go back to this, because you were saying absolutely that Harry is a really decent guy. You were saying about the Olympics, and he's done so and so. But, you know, you represented Rebecca Luce. David Beckham was a perfectly decent guy, wasn't he?
David Beckham was married.
I think David Beckham, if you like, and we have to say allegations all the time.
Of course, absolutely, and I never even said what it was.
But David Beckham was a family man, and the whole brand of Beckham was family. And that's how he was being sold to the world. Rebecca Luce, if the allegations were true, showed that that was total rubbish and total hypocrisy, and the public were being totally deceived. That's the justification, if there was any, in that situation. There's nothing that Prince Harry is pretending to be.
No, what is the line now, though? Because I think you would say that actually, you know, public interest defence, maybe only about 20% now, I think you said.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, it's totally changed. You know, as Neil said, basically before Leveson and since Leveson, it's totally changed. In my own experience, probably 80% of stories which would have made the front page don't.
Why is it a bad thing it's changed, do you think?
Because what you're suffering from now is neutered newspapers.
So,
Max is a great example of what we're talking about here. You know, he mentions Beckham's story. Do we believe, Max, that if that Beckham story arose now, whether we would get it in a newspaper, I suspect that most editors would be embarrassed if you put it to them, because they would be frightened of the consequences. Because if you got attacked by Leveson, you would lose your job. If your paper was criticised, advertisers would flee.
But you're saying to me that actually the papers have been neutered and our editors sitting on big stories, legitimate stories.
Yes, Max will have a bunch of them.
Right. There's a load of stories that people have come to me in the last 2 or 3 years that I think legitimate public interest, you know, exposing paedophiles, things like that. Editors are frightened because this is their private lives, therefore we can't go into it.
Is there a bad effect of Leveson, possibly a bad effect of Leveson,
I think
Vanessa?
it's a fabulous effect of Leveson. I think it's an awakening of a dormant conscience, a collective conscience, and if fear is the catalyst for the conscience, who cares? If there's some kind of moral awakening, then it's a bad damn time, because there are far too many people whose lives have been played fast and loose with for nothing more than a bit of titillation over your frosties. It's not the public interest. If you ask the public, are you suffering a dreadful dearth? Do you feel deprived? Is there a famine of fabulous stories on which you formerly feasted? The public will say, what? They won't know what you're talking about.
But look at this. I mean, what are people to make seeing this page more? It's not even anyone that looks at how you've presumably seen the photographs.
Yeah, I've seen the photos, so has everybody else, which makes the whole thing rather hilarious. Anyway, everyone's seen them on the internet.
But the thing is that the reason the Sun has done that and not even put a lookalike in probably is Leveson.
The point of it is that, you know, if you take away the specific of Prince Harry today, right, what we're talking about here is an issue whereby we have a culture that means that here in Britain, actually in Ireland tonight, you stand on the border, 1 foot on one side of the border, the Irish Herald has the picture on its front page. You stand on the other side of the border and the British newspapers are too scared to show that picture. Yet you go on the web and all over the world you can see these pictures. The only people who can't are British newspapers.
The fact is that people
are responsible, passionate, decent.
Yes, but the point is that it's the next stage. It's the next stage of news, isn't it? As Guido Fawkes said, you know, it's on the web. You've looked at it on the web.
I think
Lots of people looked at it on the web. You'd have looked at it in a newspaper. Would you have bought a newspaper if it was in it to look at it?
Specifically to have a good look at Prince Harry. If you want the truth, he looks fantastic. I'd buy a centrefold with Prince Harry looking like that.
I think the main difference is illustrated when News of the World closed and the Sun took over on the Sunday. The Sun is nothing like the News of the World, and its circulation is nothing like the News of the World, because the British public wanted the scandal, the things that were being exposed in the News of the World. That doesn't happen anymore. Whether it's a good thing or not is another matter. But it doesn't happen anymore.
We can talk. We talked about
the British
newspapers being neutered in advance of Leveson. We don't even know what Leveson is going to say, but in advance of Leveson. Just finally on the question of the royal family, it will be a very, very interesting paper that actually published anything in the royal family now. Do you think it's really off limits? Do you think they've actually successfully managed the whole PR exercise?
I think the royal family was off limits until about 40 years ago anyway, and then you had a spell where suddenly things were starting to appear which you would never have dreamt of. Now the royal family, along with everybody else, every major star, is getting massive protection, mainly because of Leveson and because everything has changed out there. And there's an argument for and against. You must have a free press, you must have a responsible press. But what we've got now is a press that's hands are tied behind their back, and that can be bad as well as good.
And it's the bad guys who get away with it as a result.
Thank you all very much indeed.